I have reached the weaving shop, where the talented weavers are filled with fascinating historical knowledge regarding this craft. Here's Richard Jerian to tell us all about it.
I'm a mechanical engineer, and I've been one for many years, and I've been involved in some fabulous projects at Ford Motor Company. And as an engineer, I was very interested in very fine, delicate structures, and that's exactly what a textile is. And so it was a natural thing for me, and I started taking a class in a local weaving shop, and it just grew, and the interest grew, and it became an avocation, and eventually became this terminal disease that I suffer from being a weaver. My wife would tell me that whenever I start talking about textiles, I get a different tone in my voice. When I start thinking about how these things are made and the structures of them and the history associated with them and the people who used this equipment before we got here to use this equipment, it's just an awe-inspiring bit of history that just feels wonderful. We have a number of looms here in the weaving shop. Down at the end, we have a colonial loom. That would have been the kind of loom that would have been used in a family's home. About a quarter of the people in New England would have had a loom like that in their home. This loom, however, is a little more complex, and this is the kind of loom that would have been used by a craftsman in his weaving shop. The loom that we have here is a jacquard loom, also a craftsman's loom designed to make very complicated and decorative fabrics. While on the other side of the shop is a power loom. It's an electrically driven loom that was actually part of Henry Ford's Highland Park assembly plant. Woven fabric is the interlacements of fibers. Warp fibers and weft fibers interlace with each other and create a structure that you can make something out of. What the loom does is it holds the threads that you're going to be weaving nice and tight and straight. It gives you a way of raising some of them. And then you have a method of passing a thread across in between the ones that you've raised, and then you can return them and crisscross them, and now you've locked that thread in. So what you're doing is you're interlacing threads. You have threads that go one way, threads that go the other way across them, and they interlock with each other to form a stable structure, which is your cloth. That's what the loom is facilitating as you step on the treadles and throw the shuttle. We make a couple of different things. Right now we have 3 different things on our looms. On the colonial loom, we're making a rug. It's a rag rug, and traditionally cloth takes a lot of work to make, and you don't just throw it away. So if you're going to make clothing, you're going to have scraps left over. So you take those scraps, you cut them up into little strips, and you weave them into a rug, and it gets to be a very durable rug. So on that loom, we're making a carpet that's going to go into the Firestone farmhouse. On this loom behind me, we're making toweling. This is all cotton towels, and they get used in the buildings in the village, and they also get sold in the shops for people to take home with them. And on the jacquard loom, what we're weaving is a sample of the kind of pattern that would have been woven in a 19th century American bed coverlet. There is a machine at the top of the loom, and its function is to pull on cords that subsequently raise the warp threads. And each one of those warp threads is attached to its own separate cord. And the machine reads the cards. It has hundreds of little pins that look for a hole, and each pin relates to one of the warp threads. So if it finds a hole, it causes the machine to lift the warp thread. If it finds a blank spot, then it lets the machine leave that thread down. So the cards and the holes in the card are controlling the switches in the lifting machine that raise it and lower the warp threads. It recognizes the fact that weaving in many, many cases is binary, and that concept was the new thing that was picked up by mathematicians in England and here in the United States, and it expanded to begin the development of tabulating machines and computers. All started with a loom where somebody was trying to either raise a thread or lower a thread. It's that binary thinking that was so really critical to the development. This is the foundation of so much of what we do today, I think it's very important for people to understand where they came from. History is critical to the future. You need to understand the basis for what you're doing and what you have been doing so that you can understand how to go forward and change things for the better. These kinds of crafts represent not only the skills to do them, but also the mindset and the thought processes that go into thinking about how to do them. It's an art form because there are so many variables. Weaving is not simple. It requires a great deal of mental input. It's a creative process. You have to decide what the fabric is going to look like. And there are colors to be selected, there are patterns to be selected, there are structures to be selected, and all of these things are almost infinitely variable, and you can create something that means something. Many people don't realize what it takes to make the cloth that goes into clothing that they wear and the other cloth items that are part of their life. We try to show them how they're made. We try to show them how the technologies that came from these looms are relevant to them even today. The jacquard loom makes use of punched cards to control the loom. Those punched cards were developed in 1803, but they eventually became computer punch cards, and they eventually became the binary kind of data storage that's in the cell phone that everybody's carrying around. So we try to connect this historical information and these artifacts with their lives today so that they can get an appreciation of what they have and where it came from. Greenfield Village is a place that really does inspire people to do things. I mean, this place makes a difference. I see kids get turned on by what they do here, and that's exciting to me and very satisfying. I have a friend who's a professor at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, and she started her career as a 10-year-old walking into the front door of this weaving shop. It's the kind of place that makes a difference, and that's important to me.
You mean to tell me a loom is responsible for a binary code? That is crazy. Just one more incredible thing I've learned today here at Greenfield Village.